Pierre-Auguste Renoir is going to be another interesting artist of Impressionism, because one of the key facets at the time of Parisian life is going to be leisure activities. And so Renoir will go out of his way to capture these scenes of dancing, the ballet, the opera, etc. These are all going to be very common. And let me point out that they're common to a certain part of the population. If you're middle class or upper class, you're probably taking part in the ballet and the opera. These dance halls will be a little bit lower in the sort of class scale. We'll still see middle class, but you'll see more working class getting involved in those images. Most of Impressionism is, of course, going to be keyed to the middle class and above. The reason is those are the buyers, and many of the buyers at the time are going to be looking for images that reflect themselves. We like to see mirrors, not windows. We like to see ourselves reflected in certain elements of art. So here we see Le Moulin de la Galette, painting by Renoir. And we see a depiction of people in a popular dance hall. And I should point out that this dance hall is happening outdoors. This is in a park during the day. This is not the club at night. Very different sort of ideas. Now, some of the people we see chattering while others are dancing in the distance. The entire work dappled in sunlight and shadow. But he does a couple of interesting things. First, we see that candid element where he's cropped out certain faces, certain people. And that's, again, coming from photography, but he's borrowing something else from photography. Let's look at this pair over here. As we look at them, you'll notice that they're a little bit blurred. They're dancing, and we can tell that they're dancing, but the back of his clothes is just a hair blurred. This area is blurred. The back of her dress is blurred. Why is that happening? Well, keep in mind, the human eye does not see blur. We don't see motion blur. As much as you want to, it doesn't matter how fast something's going, the eye will follow it. And that's because of how the eye interacts with the brain, creating the image and kind of balancing things out. So here he's blurring the image to produce the effect of floating in movement. He's borrowing that idea of motion blur from photography. Again, another element where photography is coming in and influencing our typical two-dimensional art. Moving back to the whole piece, the unposed crowded placement suggests that the scene is far wider than the frame has allowed, as if Renoir has simply captured a piece of it, the most important piece of it, but just a piece. So this is really interesting, especially when we start to compare it to classical art. So whereas classical art sought to capture the timeless, Impressionism, especially Renoir, is interested in that fleeting moment. He's looking at the ideas of Parisian leisure, which are really coming into being at the end of the 19th century. This is where the working class, through labor reform, is getting more and more time off, primarily starting with weekends and then going from there, heading for the 40-hour work week, which means they have time for recreation. They have time to use that money for something to entertain themselves. And that's what Renoir is really capturing. He's not just capturing the fleeting moment, light and color like we've dealt with other Impressionists. He's really capturing a massive change in the society, a change that we're going to see other artists capture as well, because recreation is one of those new ideas of the late 19th century that really characterizes Paris at the time.